A few years ago, Dark arrived on Netflix, and those who found it experienced something really special. It was the rare mystery box show that asked just enough questions to make you crave answers, but not so many that it became frustrating. And it consistently answered those questions in surprising, yet satisfying ways. But the show wasn't just about mystery and suspense. There was also a cast of characters we cared about deeply. As a result, the show's revelations were often paired with real emotion like heartbreak, anger, and occasionally, hope. And all of that was amplified by the show's unforgettable tone, thanks in large part to that soundtrack. The score and song choice every episode assured this series a permanent residency in our minds. The story of Dark may be complete, but its co-creators, Odar and Jantje Friese, have created a new series, set to premiere on Netflix sometime before the end of the year. It's called 1899, and at the Toronto International Film Festival, I had the privilege of seeing its first 2 episodes. So, how was it? Have they managed to once again catch lightning in a bottle? It's of course too early to say 1899 is just as special as Dark, but based on the first 2 episodes, I can say that all the elements are there, and this series is certainly on the right track. Depending on where things go, there is a strong possibility 1899 will rival Dark in quality. After the premiere, I checked out social media to see what others were saying about the show. I was surprised to find a number of people saying that it's very different from Dark. Of course, from an actual plot and story standpoint, it is very different. But in every other respect, I'd say that in the best possible way, they're very similar. In fact, I left the premiere feeling very much like I had just watched a spiritual successor to Dark, as though 1899 were season 2 of an anthology series focused on bringing human stories to the world of science fiction. Dark showed us the human side of time travel paradoxes, and 1899 shows us the human side of something else. Just like Dark, 1899 is ostensibly focused on a strange mystery. Dark began with the mystery of what happened to Mikkel, and 1899 begins with, well, rather than try and explain it without spoiling anything, I'll just give you the official synopsis from Netflix. Passengers on an immigrant ship traveling to the new continent get caught in a mysterious riddle when they find a second vessel adrift on the open sea. And just like Dark's central mystery quickly grew a lot more complicated than that initial question of where is Mikkel, the first episodes of 1899 give indications that things will grow similarly complicated. The danger of this approach is that audiences can become frustrated if too many questions are piled on without answers and revelations keeping pace. It's a little early to judge whether or not 1899 nails this, but I can say for sure there were many questions in the first couple of episodes, and there were some revelations, some which led to audible gasps from the audience. I left the theater craving the next episode, but didn't feel frustrated like answers were being unfairly withheld. Some of that comes from my confidence that the creators know what they're doing. With Dark, the overarching mystery was clearly planned in advance. I'm sure there is always some degree of making it up as you go along, but that clearly was not the guiding principle here. There were many images in the first season of Dark, and even in the first episode, which, in retrospect, were breadcrumbs pointing to the show's ultimate conclusion. So we know it had to be planned in advance. During the post-screening Q&A, one audience member asked if they were taking a similar approach with 1899. Baron and Jantje laughed, saying they don't know how to do it any other way. He also playfully compared their approach to Lost, where the creators dragged things out because they were forced by money. As with Dark, mystery is all well and good, but you also need to care about that mystery, which means there has to be a cast of characters at the center of it who themselves have a reason to seek out answers. If you've seen the promotional material, then you know that 1899 has no shortage of characters. The same way Lost offered a wide cast of flight passengers, 1899 does the same with its ship passengers. In fact, the first episode introduced so many characters, it almost felt like each scene focused on a new protagonist, though it never felt overwhelming. Jantje Friese, the one of the pair who most focuses on the writing and the characters, knows how to quickly establish a character and make them instantly recognizable from the rest of the cast. The standout for me is Andreas Peachman, who you'll recognize as the middle-aged Jonas from Dark. He plays the captain of the ship, and every line he speaks drips with mystery and tragedy, something that's easier for me to appreciate on this series because much of the time I can purely focus on his performance without reading subtitles. In their interviews and promotional material, Jantje and Baron have spoken about the multinational nature of the show. The ship carries passengers from all over Europe, and they mostly speak their native tongue. So many watching will at times get to hear their own language, and at other times read subtitles. In part, their motivation behind this choice was to craft a melting pot of a story in response to our world's growing nationalism. Regardless of their reasoning, it does wonders for the story. Hearing different languages without the old trick of pretending everyone speaks English adds a sense of realism, and when characters can't speak the same language, it creates barriers between them, one more challenge we get to watch them struggle to overcome. Having said that, the large cast is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it creates so many different windows into the story where each character brings their own subplot and point of view. There's also a lot of fun in getting to know individual characters before watching them meet and interact for the first time. On the other hand, some characters are closer to the show's central mystery than others. So when we left one of those characters to join another, I instinctively became a little frustrated, because naturally I want to stay with the characters who are most likely to find me some answers. Further, it's not just the overarching plot that's made mysterious, but also the characters themselves. Nearly every character has a mysterious and dark background. Many of them seem to be on the ship to escape something back home. That something just happens to be different for each of them. This, of course, adds to the pile of questions that keeps us watching, but also risks creating distance between us and the characters. When I'm with a protagonist, seeing the story from their point of view, but not fully grasping their motivation or why they're there, it does undercut some of my empathy. It makes it a little harder for me to connect with them. But as I got to know some of them better, even in the span of just 2 episodes, I felt that issue start to remedy itself. So I think this is something that will fade as the story progresses. In fact, I recall having a similar experience with Game of Thrones. It just seems to be a natural risk when it comes to any story with a large ensemble cast. Right after the premiere, I saw some on social media pointing out that Dark moved at a much quicker pace than 1899. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that feeling may be a result of the things I'm talking about here. If you don't fully connect with a character, or you're eager to return to another, you're going to feel less engaged. You're going to feel like you're waiting, and that may be perceived as a slower pace. Having said all that, these concerns are mild. On the whole, as I said earlier, the show had me dying to see episode 3, and I imagine episode 3 will have me dying to see episode 4. The central mystery, which I'm clearly dancing around in this whole review, is intensely gripping. I so badly want to know the truth. The same way Dark quickly became a lot more interesting than What Happened to Mikkel, 1899 quickly becomes a lot more interesting than the premise I read you earlier. I already care about many of these characters and want to see how their journeys progress. I want to get to know them more, and I want to hear the song choice for the rest of these episodes. That's one thing I have to mention. Remember how nearly every episode of Dark featured at least one really memorable song toward the end of the episode? Usually paired with a montage of characters looking sad? If you miss that, don't worry, 1899 will once again satisfy your craving. It was a little less montagey, but both episodes featured a great piece of music as things came to a head. And the score throughout is fantastic. It often features synth in a way that harkens back to Blade Runner, and I have to say, hearing sounds we normally associate with the future played over late 1800s steamships creates a strange cognitive dissonance which perfectly suits this series. If there's a risk of 1899 retreading a similar tone as Dark, the score is one element which helps sets it apart with a unique flavor. On that note, one question you might have is, Is 1899 as dark as dark? Probably too early to say, but also probably yes. 2 episodes in, it hasn't achieved the same level of dread and sadness, but it also doesn't shy away from traumatizing some of its characters, and us in the process. These moments are hard to watch, but they also lead to some of the most impressive and effective moments of performance. The last thing I'll mention is that the special effects, which need to convince us we're in the middle of a vast ocean, are great. The series uses the same stagecraft technology introduced by The Mandalorian, where instead of green screens, they use large, curved screens which display the background live on set, meaning what we see on screen is the same as what the actors see when they're actually shooting. The technology is also used for many interior shots. Several scenes take place in a lavish dining room, or the ship's underbelly where an army of men shovel coal. In all cases, the spaces felt real and convincingly large. Well, I think that's about everything I can say without spoiling anything. The TLDR of this whole thing is, if you like dark, definitely give this show a chance. I don't know if 1899 will reach the same heights, but with the first 2 episodes, they are definitely heading in that direction. Unfortunately, they are yet to announce a release date, but Netflix has consistently said it'll be this year. And this year is quickly hurtling toward December, so I gotta think it's coming soon. If you're excited for this show, make sure to subscribe so you can keep up with our coverage when it releases. Based on the first couple of episodes, it seems like 1899 will offer up just as much opportunity for fun discourse, theories, and analysis, so definitely stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.